Welcome to Heads Up Hockey. It is all things hockey talk and all things centric around the game, and it's also New Jersey Devils talk as well. And please enjoy the show.
Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Heads Up Hockey. It is Wednesday, the 26th of July. It is not too far from NHL preseason camp and all the good stuff that's going to be coming. And we're definitely going to have to talk about the retirement of Patrice Bergeron and the extension of Sebastian Aho and how this can possibly affect, well, both the Metropolitan Division and the Atlantic Division in today's episode. So, without further ado, it's been a little while, but not that much of a while because for those of you who know me, I went on the Rangers Blue Seats podcast with Jimmy Finizzi of the Hockey Podcast Network to talk about the Metropolitan and how it would affect all the 8 teams. Plus, I was on the Locked On Devils podcast with Trey Matthews, talking about the wrap-up of the 2023 season. So basically the 22-23 season, I gave my X Factors, my MVP, and I also talked more about what the Devils could be doing this upcoming season. And I've been doing that kind of stuff as of late because, it's been a little while and I just wanted to get back out there. And now that there's more stuff going on, I'm going to start referencing Cap Friendly, going over what the Bruins are affected by and the Carolina Hurricanes. So I'm going to try and do my best interpretation of it. So without further ado, here we go once again. So as we all know, the Bruins have a roster size of 21 of 23. Their projected cap space is over $5.429 million. So right now, Don Sweeney does not have a first rounder. It's a conditional in the 24 draft. This no second rounder, no third rounder. The Bruins only have rounds 4 through 6. So that's something that they are currently having. 2025, they have a conditional first of their own, and they also have their 3rd, 5th, 6th, and 7th. Now, I've talked about this over the past couple seasons on Heads Up Hockey and online about why it's important to develop more players within your farm system. And there is a tweet out there that the Bruins could only produce one player since 2018, which is very sad. So as of now, if you look at the age of the Boston Bruins with their forward core, they average an age of 29.1 years old. So 46.1% of their cap hit is all on forwards. Majority of it is because of David Pastrnak for the next 8 years with $11.25 million per. And then you take a look at Marchand. Marchand is 35. Charlie Coyle is 31. I'm going to see a big drop-off in Pavel Zacha. I'm not trying to hate on the guy, but when he was playing with guys like Bergeron and Krejci, his stock took off pretty well, but you're going to have to rely more on Zacha, Pastrnak, Marchand, Coyle. Zacha is going to have to step up his game again, and DeBrusk is going to have to do the same thing. Morgan Geekie, same story. He's going to have to step up his game. Milan Lucic is going to be a bottom six guy. Physical presence. James Van Riemsdyk, the Middletown, New Jersey native, he's going to be that top 9 guy that the Bruins are going to rely on for those tip-ins. And he's really good on the power play. Brings playoff experience. Then you have Jesper Boqvist. I think he has a lot of untapped potential. Like 22 points, but he could score another 8 points and he'll be a solid pickup. But he just didn't fit into the Devils' near and long-term mold. And then AJ Greer is meant to be more of that physical guy, grind it out, slug it type player. Then Trent Frederick, similar guy, more like a bottom 6 player. So really, like, age is a problem. Van Riemsdyk is 34. He's my age. Milan Lucic is a year older than me, so Lucic is 35. And just taking a look at Brad Marchand, he's 35. So, yeah, you're going to have to look at potential being handcuffed because Marchand isn't up until the end of the 24-25 season on July 1st. And then what that means is you have guys like, hold on a sec. By the time Charlie Coyle has his contract up in another 3 seasons, he will be about 34 and change years old. So really, it's going to be money coming off the books. So like, you look at Marchand, $6.125 million theoretically comes off the books. And then the same thing with Charlie Coyle. In the 2026 July offseason, $5.25 million comes off the books. But right now, the Bruins really don't have too much outside of Pastrnak if Marchand and Coyle end up leaving in the next 4 seasons. And then you start to look at the defense. I mean, you look at their oldest players, Kevin Shattenkirk. He's only there for a year. And it's a wait-and-see type thing. And you look at the next player at age 31 is Derek Forbort. That's a wait-and-see type player. So there's not a whole lot to really worry about in those guys. But Brandon Carlo is one of those very, very reliable top 2 pairing defensemen. You have Hampus Lindholm, who's there for another 7 years. So you're hoping with him and McAvoy, you're hoping for the next 4 seasons at least, 4 out of 7 seasons, that Boston could try and stay relevant and be a presence in the Atlantic Division. But I think it's going to get tougher. It's not going to be easy for them to try and repeat as President's Trophy winners. Linus Ullmark, definitely a player. When healthy, he's the best. You have Jeremy Swayman. He's a really good player, really good goaltender. He just needs to be tendered, given the next couple seasons of his contract. And if all goes well for the Bruins, I think they're a lock for a top 3 first seed wild card spot, because I just find that the Atlantic is getting tougher. It's not going to get any easier. And then now we look at Carolina. So they only have $845,583 in cap space. Carolina has a lot of their own draft picks and other assets at their disposal. So they're in far much better shape than the Boston Bruins when it comes to that department. And their forward core is only 27.1 compared to the Boston Bruins. And guys like Sebastian Aho, he signed an extension recently, today. So he's there for another 8 seasons on top of his original contract. So that's 9 more years to go. So that's almost a decade. So he signed for $9.75 million per season. So that'll be an increase over his $8.4625 million contract. They already have Toivu Teravainen. They got to see what he does this year. And I think he's going to do well. And Kotkaniemi is going to do just fine. And Michael Bunton's going to be that top 9, bottom 6 type player. Go for the tip-ins, crash the net, create chaos. Saw him play with the Maple Leafs before he was traded. Martin Necas is someone who's going to definitely grow on Canes fans. He's definitely going to be the player that's going to score timely goals and play make when he really can. Very underrated player. Jordan Staal, if he can just have 2/3 of those points and production from last season, the Canes will be just fine. Jesper Fast, I mean, he's got a few years left on his contract, 31 years old, but age is slowly catching up with the Canes, and it might bring them down to second place in the standings in the Metro. Jordan Martin was the one who stood out in the playoffs on top of Jordan Staal. And Jack Drury's he's one of their future pieces as a potential scorer, and along with Seth Jarvis, and being able to produce timely goals and assists, making it easier for the Canes to have a lead. Brendan Lemieux and Stefan Nason are those tough, gritty players that you want to protect your star players. Brendan Lemieux is also the son of Claude Lemieux. Now, you look at the defense. The defense is a little over 29 years old on average. The oldest guy on the Hurricanes is obviously Brent Burns. He can still hit it home pretty hard. I mean, strong slap shot. He's been around the block for quite a while, so he's a veteran. Brady Shea, still a very skilled, versatile left-handed defenseman. Brett Pesce's been around. He's a solid veteran. Jacob Slavin, all-star player in his own right, along with representing the Canes throughout the seasons that he's been with them in his tenure. So he is almost 30. So he's reaching that climax in his prime. And then you have a Dmitry Orlov who brings that physical play. He can play make. He can score. And I just think that the Tony DeAngelo thing can be a bit of a distraction, but he can be a very solid offensive defenseman, but he's more of a defensive liability. Chatfield is more of a tough physical player, can contribute offensively a little bit, but more so defensively. Freddie Anderson and Pyotr Chetkov, I mean, when Anderson's healthy in the regular season, he's one of the best. But Antti Ranta, when healthy, he is very solid. Pyotr Kochetkov during the season was their best goaltender. However, Kochetkov in the playoffs, totally different story, was not. And Andrei Svechnikov, when he gets back, he is one of the best players in the game. So, I've said before, and I'll say it again, I do see the Devils end up taking first place at some time during the season. And I could see Carolina losing their spot if they're not very careful, playing around the Devils and the way they play their game. And I just think that the Bruins are starting to come back to earth a little bit now that Bergeron is out of the fold. And I will say this. The Bruins need to start drafting better, start developing better, because it's only a matter of time when their window completely closes. So other teams like the Buffalo Sabres will start to improve. And I think they are one of the bright spots coming this season. The Ottawa Senators have like another 5 seasons to go, in my honest opinion. And if they do prove me wrong, then I'll have to say it on another podcast. Definitely, I am more confident in the Senators than the Montreal Canadiens. I think the Canadiens are 5 to 8 seasons away from being a potential contender. So they got more drafting and more developing to go. And Yuri Slafkovsky needs to get his act together with the Montreal organization. And it's only a matter of time when Montreal becomes a true force once again. So just from a Devil standpoint, I think over time, going up against a team like the Bruins won't be as tough and scary as it was in the past when Bergeron was there. Bergeron was just thwarting a lot of offensive breakouts and potentially stealing Norris trophies from Nico Hischier. But now you have an open playing field for other non-Patrice Bergeron players to win that trophy. So with that being said, thank you everybody for listening to this episode. Hit the like button on YouTube. Subscribe to Heads Up Hockey Podcast on YouTube. Also on Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify for podcasters. And look on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts, you'll find us. Tell me where you're from and how you learned about the podcast. And thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful day. And let's go Devils and happy hockey.